779-0985. I want to get into some other stuff, too, because, yes, Kendra, I recognize this might be the most Red Sox talk the station has done consistently over the last week in, I don't know, probably since 2021.
I was listening to Joe Murray last night driving home from New Hampshire, and I have to say I am in complete agreement with him. Once this series is over, I don't want to talk about Rafael Devers for a long time.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about him a little bit today.
Yes, have to. But once this series is over, I need everybody to shut up.
It'll be out of sight, out of mind until he makes a big play in the playoffs. But it's not even about Rafael Devers. So I haven't been on this week. So I've been listening to all this, and I'm just blowing up my friends' texts, just like responding to what I hear on the air. And I think they're getting sick of it. So I can do it on the internet. But like, it's not even so much about Rafael Devers to me. That's the thing. We'll talk about that game last night. And it feels like there's a big dichotomy with the Red Sox right now. Because you have a team on the field that is objectively very fun and playing very good baseball. But at the same time, it kind of feels like the entire organization is crumbling around them. I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like this. Maybe the Kyrie Irving Celtics, when like you still knew the Jays were up and coming.
I literally had the thought the other day of when he called into this station, and I had to look it up on YouTube and listen to it again. Yeah, that was awesome.
That was Zoe Beetle, right?
Yeah, McCarthy was in the third chair.
That was
right?
absolutely him. Yeah,
it was awesome. No, I don't think I've seen anything like this for maybe like genuinely ever. Also, I tweeted this yesterday. It is insane how much Craig Breslow and John Wallach look alike.
Okay, I didn't see that. I saw you tweet that. I don't see it.
You don't?
No.
Oh my God, I think that Breslow looks like John Wallach 15 years ago. They have the same face structure to me. I don't think the two of them have ever been seen in the same room at the same time, ever. There's no way, because they're the same person.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong picture. Maybe I need to take another look.
Breslow is Wallach if he started Rogaine and Botox 15 years ago. I'm serious.
He's gonna age quickly, Breslow. After everything that's coming out, because if you have not read this piece by Jeff Passan on ESPN that came out yesterday afternoon, the piece, just great stuff. Finger on the pulse, gloves off, and I could read this whole thing to you because I think it would be relevant. But there's just one part, like this is why. Even the people who were defending trading Devers, he was a cancer in the clubhouse. He wouldn't do what they wanted. They actually got more than you realize. These prospects could pan out. Yada yada yada. If this was a one-off, I'd almost be like, okay, fine. If they still had Mookie Betts, right, and they didn't have this track record. But this is what Passan writes. Theo Epstein, a lifelong Bostonian, the architect of the curse-breaking 2004 team, grew so tired of his classes with ownership that he quit on Halloween a year after his triumph and exited Fenway Park in a gorilla suit. He returned only to later abscond for the Chicago Cubs. Terry Francona, the manager for the championship 2004 and 2007, left alongside Epstein in 2011 and was smeared anonymously for his usage of pain pills. He denied the allegations and went on to win 4 division titles in 11 years. Players are not spared the drama either. Ace John Lester wanted to re-sign with the Red Sox only to get lowballed. He followed Epstein to Chicago. Betts preferred to remain in Boston, but not at a discount, and the Red Sox shipped him out. Manny Ramirez perhaps offered the best description of life with the Red Sox a day before they traded him to the Dodgers, telling ESPN Deportes, mental peace has no price, and I don't have a piece here. The Red Sox have everything an organization could want. A rabid fan base, a gorgeous stadium, a successful television network, a history that dates to the turn of the 20th century, and still find themselves regularly salving self-inflicted wounds. Chaos is every bit as much the Red Sox brand as the Green Monster. The current iteration comes not from the detritus of long-standing lack of success, but an operating philosophy that better resembles plucky mid- and small-market teams than a financial Leviathan. The Red Sox are a big market baseball in a funhouse mirror, a distorted reflection of what could be and should be. That's what this all comes back to for me. They are the Back Bay Rays. They operate like a small-market team when they don't need to. They have the resources not to. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. If they had kept Devers, if they had kept I think this all goes back to John Lester. They'd kept these guys. I would be less bothered by the trade. Who was the last Red Sox player who played here in his prime who didn't also play elsewhere in his prime?
Can you repeat the question?
Who's the last Red Sox player who played here in his prime who didn't spend a significant portion of his prime elsewhere?
Oh. Who is it?
So, I mean, it's an objective question. To me, you're going back to Dustin Pedroia and David Ortiz. And by the way, Passan doesn't even mention the Red Sox going year to year with David Ortiz, one of the greatest players in the history of the franchise, in the history of the game at the end of his career. That's a decade ago. That's 10 years ago. The Red Sox have not maintained a true cornerstone player in 10 years. So if you want to tell me Rafael Devers was a problem in the clubhouse and needed to go, like, we can have that conversation. But they don't get the benefit of the doubt. They burned through that a long time ago, and that's what bothers me. They keep talking about the future and sustainability when they've been anything but sustainable in the last 10 years.
I hate that excuse because, like, I've heard the Jarren Duran, he was like, oh, Rafa's gone, whatever, from the plane and, like, that whole quote or whatever. But what level of player and what level of celebrity do you allow to act like that and just get over it? Because think about the level of diva wide receiver you have in the NFL, because that's comparable to a DH or a player of that caliber to me. You can't tell me that this cancer isn't normal in a professional sports space when you play a position, like a premier position like that.
So last time we were on was after one of the other Devers kerfluffles, and we both said we thought he was going to get traded, but we had this conversation that, like, Larry Fitzgerald ain't walking through that door. The whole head down.
No, that generation's over.
Business as usual, superstar athlete. You're not going to hear a peep. Like, as rare as those guys were, they're even rarer now. If Rafael Devers was hitting 210, yeah, you ship his ass out of here for the way he was acting. Absolutely.
Corey didn't even bother to bench him for a night.
No. He's a top 10 hitter in baseball. And they gave up on him. And it's here in the piece. And again, read it. I could read you this whole thing. I was reading this yesterday. And I have friends, again, who have defended the trade who I knew wouldn't read it just because they're not, like, they don't have time on a Friday afternoon to sit down and read this because they have real lives and real jobs.
See, this is the kind of thing where I think that if you're at work, you pretend you got to go, to the bathroom and you sit down and you read this in there.
Like, I took care of it for them because I was sending them screenshot after screenshot. Like, you got to read this part. You got to read this part. And they mentioned Breslow viewing the financial flexibility, unloading the whole contract as part of the return. And that's one way to put it. But it's just, when you have this pattern, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. Were there some maybe baseball reasons for trading Rafael Devers? Yes. Am I supposed to believe they're going to take this $313 million, turn it around, and invest it in the team? I'll believe it when I see it. And that's where I'm at with them. It is a pure, when they talked about on that press conference this week, even talking about the return, they're like, yeah, we're really excited about the return. You got to not botch a pitching prospect now. That's another one. The internally developed pitching prospects. There's not exactly great history there. And, Kyle Harrison's been in the bigs for a couple years, but that's a guy you've got to work with. They got another left-handed hitting outfield bat because they don't have enough of those. You got to actually make the return work. You got to hit on the player development, which has been a problem. So it's all stuff that sounds great. Like, there is a narrative you can spin that, yeah, this trade makes sense. But in order for it to happen, the Red Sox have to do a bunch of things that they have very notably struggled to do for a decade.
For me, it just kind of proves the point that I don't think ownership cares about being good. I don't think that they care. They just want to save money. They don't care about anything else.
I wonder if there's another level to it. Do they care whether or not people care that they don't care about being good? If you follow that.
No, absolutely not. They never have.
No, they did once, like a long time ago. It's been a while. It's definitely been a while. For it to come out the next day that they're looking to buy another soccer team.
Yeah.
And, like, at the end of the day, is buying another soccer team really going to prevent them from what they're doing with the Red Sox? No.
But it's the focus that it takes away, too.
Yes, exactly.
When this team needs that focus right now. My other big thing, too, is that, like, I've never in my life even had an inkling of feeling bad for Boston sports fans. But between this, Tatum, and Marchand, wow.
Are we in a sympathetic spot right now?
I am not a sympathetic person at all. Like, I'm a tough crap type of girly, but I feel a little bad for you guys right now. You guys can like sleep and cuddle your trophies and stuff at night, but dang, I do feel I feel a little something for you guys right now.
Today is the last full day that Boston can claim to be a defending champion. So we have that, right? Game 7 tomorrow, NBA.
Yeah.
So if you're a Celtics fan, it's the last day. No Larry the hell out of people on Twitter. Go throw on those headlights and green team
out. Yeah, that's a good point. It is the last.
This is the last day, and we'll get into Game 7 too in a little bit. If you want to talk about it, 617-779-0985. You want to relive last year's Celtics run. What the heck? We'll celebrate the last day of Boston being defending champions. We'll talk about the Devers stuff. I also, it was a good baseball game last night for those of you who stayed up. I do want to talk a little bit about that game. We'll get into some other stuff as well. 617-779-0985. It's Alex Barth and Kendra Middleton here on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hot summer days are just around the corner. Contact L&F Electrical Heating and Cooling and have a mini split system installed in your home or office. Their veteran-owned team is proud to offer Sports Hub listeners 15% off a mini split installation. Call today and have it installed right away. Visit lfelectricalservice.com or call 844-LF-WIRES. Do you know the difference between diagnostic and preventative care? Preventative services detect or prevent health problems before you show symptoms. This may include screenings, lab tests, immunizations, or
Like, you can't have that on the computer. So I had FrostWire.
Me too. I also had FrostWire.
Why would you have both, though?
Because I killed one computer with LimeWire, so I went to FrostWire with another.
So, yeah, that was... I think I had LimeWire once. And I still... So I...
Oh, the chat roulette days.
Chat roulette. What was the other one? Omegle, right?
Yeah, was it Omegle or Omegle? I think it was Omegle.
I think I called it Omegle.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever said it out loud.
I saw things on that app that no middle schooler should ever see.
We all saw those things on there.
That's why I'm like, the parents these days are so soft about raising their kids with the internet, because I was like, if you know anything about these websites, we were doing that and we're okay.
We had that. I think we've talked about this before when we were on the air together. Yik Yak.
Oh my gosh. I loved Yik Yak.
It was great.
Yik Yak was awesome. I lived on Stanford's campus when Yik Yak came out, and watching all these like super smart nerds just like roast each other on Yik Yak was crazy.
So wait, so quick LimeWire thing. So I was very like, I never did Spotify or any of that. I still did the plug the phone into the computer, like download music through iTunes. I had a very old computer that still had iTunes that I used just for this. So I still had versions of songs on my phone up until you can't do it anymore. So I got this phone like a year ago. I had to change it over.
You're so old.
But like, I had versions of songs. Remember how sometimes in LimeWire songs there'd be like a random audio drop or something in the middle of it?
Yeah, it would be like they would just say some random words.
Some guy plugging a website.
Yeah.
I had songs up until a year ago that I'd been listening to for like a decade that had those drops in them. And so then when I got my phone, I got on Apple Music, and it all, it automatically syncs them up with the actual version of the song. So now I'm listening to songs. I'm like, this sounds different. What's going on? Like, not even realizing that that's what it was.
Are you Spotify or Apple Music?
Apple Music.
Barth.
So it just like, I don't even know how I got it. I think my dad signed up for something, and I'm still on there. Like, it's still one account, right? Just because I don't want to change my number and it's easier. So I think my dad or my brother signed up for something, and I just had Apple Music on my phone one day. Sure. Why not?
I need to confess something to you.
What?
McCarthy and I were on last weekend, and we were talking about how we're the three youngest on-air people here.
Yeah.
And while you're younger than McCarthy, Kyle and I both agreed, not to throw Kyle under the bus, I'm so sorry, I love you so much. We agreed that even though McCarthy is older than you and he's an old soul, he is hipper than you. And this just solidified that conversation for me.
There's so many less hip things about me than the fact I use Apple Music.
No, it's just the fact that you got rid of your plug-in, download, like, songs last year.
It was, it might have been 2 years ago. I don't know. That was just how I always did it.
Do you still, like, burn CDs for your car?
No. No. It was just, well, because I had songs, I didn't want to get rid of it, because to do that, you have to, like, totally turn it over, right? You either have, maybe I just couldn't figure out the iPhone, but it was like you either had the music.
I couldn't figure out my iPhone.
I'm like pretty technologically good, too. So I was annoyed. But, like, I had downloaded stuff off YouTube that was, like, remixes or live versions of songs or whatever that, like, you're not going to get on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, and I didn't want to lose those. So it was more about, it wasn't like, Spotify, shake my fist at the cloud. It was more like, so, for instance, there's Counting Crows have a version of Rain King that has Thunder Road in the middle of it.
I don't even know what any of that means.
All right.
I know. Did you say, wait, what band did you say?
Counting Crows. You know who the Counting Crows are.
Okay. See, I confused them with that, like, Christian band from the early 2000s. What is it? Casting Crowns, something like that?
I have no idea what you're talking about. But,
okay.
Or, like, there was some, again, the blog rap stuff. Like, Joyner Lucas remixes and stuff. They're on YouTube, but he doesn't, like, put out. So I was like, I don't want to lose any of that. So it was just, I'll just keep doing, and I could still add from Apple Music, but it was just keeping the old stuff, too. And instead of replacing all of it. And then it all got wiped when I got my new phone. You like guys
dropping random websites in the middle of your songs?
It was better than not having some songs that I liked.
I just can't get behind it. It's tough.
Also, supposedly the sound quality is better with Apple Music. Which I am a little bit of like a music nerd. It's crisper quality.
All right.
It's like 4K versus HD or whatever.
All right.
Anyway, the Red Sox played a really entertaining game last night. If you stayed up for that, it was worth it. That was a fun game.
I stayed up for as long as I could, and then I obviously have to be here so early that I just at one point had to go to bed, and then I woke up and watched the highlights this morning.
So they went down 3-0 early, and I was like, because I had to be up early too, and I'm like, all right, they'll get behind, I'll go to bed, whatever. Because this team has not been able to come back all year. They have not been hitting recently. And then they fought back. They kept, erasing deficits, trading runs. They got big hits from the bottom of the lineup. Just all things that they haven't done all year. And then you get that awesome at bat between Chapman and Devers at the end. Did you see the simultaneous nod?
Yeah.
Which is just awesome. And it was an exciting baseball game. For 1 a.m. when it wrapped up, it was an exciting baseball game. So that's what's crazy about this Red Sox team to me is I don't know if this is sustainable, what they're doing right now. But to do what they're doing on the field compared to everything else that's going around the team, they're not boring. I'll say this about the last few years, they haven't been good, but they've also been kind of boring. This team may or may not be good, but they're definitely not boring.
My thing is that they're definitely not boring, but I did say this last week, and I'm still going to continue to stick behind this. They've had a couple good Junes the last couple of years. I think June is the month for the Red Sox where whether they've started slow, they get hot in June, and then we see them fall off later in the season. I think that this team, with the current construction that they have, just continues to be a team that maxes out in June, and I think that we see them fall off again in July. What's going to happen is they're going to have a good June. We're going to have the same thing we did last year where we're going to get to the trade deadline and we're going to be like, all right, are they going to be buyers or sellers? They should be buyers. Clearly, they're sellers this year already. They're going to continue to be sellers. That's what everyone's expecting with probably Jarren Duran and a couple other of these guys.
Chapman.
Maybe Trevor Story, if they can get something for him, I think might also be on the table, even though there's the argument that he is now the grown-up in the room, whatever. I get that you have Bregman. Still, he's been around on this team longer. That's the conversation that people are having. But I think that it's just going to continue to build on the momentum of, okay, this team is awesome in June. Exciting. We're having a good time. We should be buyers. And then they're going to sell everybody. And people are going to be like, well, what the hell?
I just hope they don't do one of these like half and half deadlines, which they've done the last few years. Add some players, trade away some players where it's like they're not really committing to one side or the other. They're just shuffling the deck chairs. I don't need another one of those. JP and NP has a question for Kendra. JP, what's going on?
Well, as the old fogey calling the show, which quick thought, DMX body of work, if we're talking rappers, my number one for me.
All right.
And Kendra, I got 2 questions for you from last night. One is a follow-up from Joe's show last night. As the resident alligator wrestler in the room there, the tough woman from the South, turkeys versus peacocks. The topic came up. Could you take down a turkey or a peacock? And I need my F1 bet for next week in Austria, Kendra. Not the winner. Give me a top 5 finish that I could throw some money on because I've been watching it since you've been talking about it.
Hell yeah. Great call. As far as the turkey peacock situation, I think that turkeys are way meaner. I would probably be more likely to beat up a peacock. Also, I prefer wrestler to wrestler if we're really going to go full-blown south. So definitely turkey over peacock. Turkeys are mean as hell. I'm pulling up the odds for racing right now. Motorsport, Formula 1. All right, top 2, top 4. Oh, dang. Let me look at this for a second, to be honest.
All right, JP, we'll get to that on the other side of the break. Thanks for the call. What is this turkey peacock thing?
Joe,
great, here I go not being hip again.
I guess Joe last night was talking about turkeys and peacocks. I missed this. I must have been at work about them fighting each other. But turkeys are so mean.
That's a no-brainer, turkeys.
Turkeys are so mean.
And they're dense. Like, you can't. Those things are tanks.
They also should have definitely been our national bird. I'm on Ben Franklin's side that our country is far better represented as a turkey than an eagle. We are a turkey country. We should have been turkeys. It makes eagles cooler. Turkeys make more sense.
A peacock versus a turkey, like a turkey's much tougher than a peacock. There aren't even peacocks.
Peacocks are just pretty boys.
Are they even like around here? I know like in zoos, but I don't know that
I don't know. It's a good question. You know who has a ton of peacocks?
Who?
Disney World campsites. I grew up camping in Disney World because my dad likes to be outdoors and my mom needs a bathroom, so we would glamp. And there would just be peacocks running around everywhere at Disney World's campgrounds. So many.
I remember the Roger Williams Zoo going there as a kid. Yeah, there's just they're not like in an exhibit. There's just peacocks walking around, hanging out. They're just like they're like pigeons. They'll come up to you.
Yeah.
So, we'll get your F1 pick next.
No, I got it.
You got it? All right, what do you got?
Far too far out. But if you want top 4, we're going to go Kimi Antonelli plus 285. I think Mercedes is on a ripper. Ferrari's dead. And that's the only value that I see. Everybody else for a top 4 finish, that's like the first person outside of Lewis to have any positive anything. And Lewis Hamilton, I hate to say it, that is Sir Lewis Hamilton to you. He is cooked, well done, fried to a crisp. The end.
All right, you want to get more bets from Kendra? 617-779-0985. You want to talk Red Sox? I want to get into Game 7, too.
I want to talk about Jalen Ramsey as well.
And Jalen Ramsey. We'll get to that coming up here on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.
I was in like high school, maybe.
We can get some Kyle, we can get some Wiz Khalifa in here. That's that era.
Black and yellow, black and yellow.
No, we got to go deeper cut than that. Not that that was a deep cut. We got to go deeper cut.
I saw Wiz Khalifa in middle school, and my sister took me, and I think that was my first time ever getting secondhand high.
I just want, like, let's get those vibes. This is the first Saturday. I want to feel good. This is the first Saturday in 14 weeks. It's not raining. There's not even a cloud in the sky. First Saturday in 14 weeks, it's not raining.
And it's not supposed to rain tomorrow either.
Whole weekend, perfectly clear. And yet here we are on the radio talking to the good people. Nowhere I'd rather be. I will be outside the rest of the weekend.
I'm going to the beach after this.
Happy to start it. I'm going to the beach tomorrow. I'm going to concert tonight, beach tomorrow. Great weekend.
Wait, who are you seeing?
It's Stapleton, George Strait.
I know George Strait. I don't know who the other person is.
Chris Stapleton? You know who Chris Stapleton is?
Nah, big dog.
He's like one of the biggest artists on the... Broken Halos, Tennessee Whiskey?
No.
Kyle, could you help me out here? Thank you.
I'm sorry, you guys.
I'm surprised you're calling me an old head. You know who George Strait is?
Yeah.
But not Chris Stapleton?
Yeah. It's obviously country music, and I don't... despite being from the Deep South, I do not know country.
Did you watch the Super Bowl like 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's right. He did the national anthem, the Super Bowl.
One
Big
of the best
guy,
national
beard, hair.
Any of these country singers could punch me in the face, and I'd be like, who the hell are you?
You've heard Tennessee Whiskey. You may just not know it.
No, I know that song. I just didn't know that was his song.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that Morgan Wallen's name was Morgan Wallet for like 5 years.
So he's not like the same as Morgan Wallen. It's not the same genre. Kyle, would you agree with that?
Because that's not real country music.
That's
Morgan
like pop
Wallen?
country.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pop
and
country.
that crap sucks.
Stapleton's more like Southern rock blues. Like there's definitely a country element to it. And
yeah, I know old country, obviously, like growing up in the region of the country that I did, but any of this new country, pop, punk, country crap, no.
Stapleton's somebody who I thought was popular enough to go like beyond genre. Because he's got songs with people. The artist Her.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I forget what the award show was. They did, she has a song, it's like Hold On or something like that. They did a version of that together.
I'm getting so many texts about this right now.
That you didn't know who Chris Stapleton was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can't call me not hip and then not know who Chris Stapleton. That's a Billboard artist.
I second that one.
Okay. At least, you know what? Fine. I'll take it. At least I didn't confuse Dolly Parton and Beyonce.
Who did that?
I'll let you take a guess. You get 3 guesses.
Lift Shots?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's Dolly Parton. Like confused them in what sense? Like heard it and
Kyle
was like,
played a rejoiner and thought that it was Dolly Parton and it was Beyonce.
What song? Was it like one?
It was from one of her her new albums.
So it was like Cowboy Carter's like
yeah,
the
it was
country
Cowboy Carter.
album. That's still wild to me.
I think it was Texas Hold'em.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I can't say I am totally an expert on Dolly Parton's voice. Obviously, I've heard Texas Hold'em a million times. It's a very popular song. I would never hear that. It's a little different sound for Beyonce.
Did do a version of it. In Dan's defense.
But her voice is like very... So Dan just knew the song. Okay, that's still wild. Yeah, it's the CMT Awards in 2021. Chris Stapleton and Her. Hold On. If you want to see some awesome, awesome guitar playing and singing, check that out. But that surprised me that you don't know Chris Stapleton.
I think living in Alabama really ruined country music for me.
I could see it because it's just too much of the pop country.
No, it's just... Everyone, it was that's all I heard, and now I hate it. Also, the way that people in Alabama order Coors Light is unlike anything I've ever heard. I'm from the Deep South. I know country accents in and out. There is nothing like someone in Alabama ordering a Coors. I bartended my way through college. Coors Light.
Well, it's not
Coors.
Like one accent, right? It's like the Carolinas have a different accent than Tennessee. Then
yeah, it's like you differentiate accents from around the country, but Southerners can differentiate accents from right. Because like a Louisiana Southern accent is different from Georgia or the Carolinas or even West Virginia.
The Cajun accent is awesome. Cocho.
Oh my God, yeah. My dad growing up was a caterer on the side. He was a fireman and then did like Florida Task 5, like all this like first responder stuff, and then he catered was like with Cajun food on the side. So that's all I grew up eating was Cajun catering. and most of his friends were Cajun. Those accents are crazy.
What is a Jacksonville accent? I don't know that I've ever heard what a Jacksonville accent is.
Jacksonville is like 45 minutes from the border of Georgia, so it's a Georgia accent.
It's just a Georgia, just carryover?
I consider anything north of Orlando still the South because of just how much Georgia and Alabama influence there is, especially if you live in that like panhandle to the east, like under Alabama, Georgia situation. That is still like the deep South.
So are you one of these people who believe, like I used to hear, like if you go far enough south in Florida, it's like you're north again?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
And then Maine is the opposite?
Yeah.
If you go far enough north in Maine, it's like you're south again?
Yeah, snowbirds for sure. Horrible.
I like the, you remember the thing that Scott Van Pelt used to do with the Baltimore accent?
No.
Or no, who would he interview? I think it was Tim Kirchin who has that accent. There's some really good clips of it online. Tim Kirchin has anytime he'd come on, he'd just screw with Kirchin and be like, so what do you think of Joe Flacco? And that was when I was in college, and we started doing that voice for like a month.
Scott Van Pelt came into the bar that I worked at Auburn one time, and I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say about him. But he came in, was working one of the games or game days or something at Auburn, and came in and asked our bouncer where the bathroom was. And he was like, holy crap, it's like Scott Van Pelt. And he told him where the bathroom was. And he was like, no, I need like your employee bathroom situation. So SVP came in and did the thing in our bar bathroom, the employee bathroom, and then left.
Was this like a college bar?
Yeah. Like real, like SEC college bar.
I feel like you know what you're getting into when you walk into a college bar. Like go...
It was not. It was such a college bar that like it was so old that you could smoke in there. Like not that long ago, so like the ceilings were just even like caked with just.
What was it called? What was the bar called?
Coyotes.
That's a college bar.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's absolutely
honestly, not to get political, but if I could have stayed a bartender and had healthcare, I probably never would have stopped. I loved it so much.
At that one bar, or just like in general.
At that one bar, I would have never left my college town. I would have stayed and died in that bar.
All right, let's go to Justin and Lynn on the Red Sox. Justin.
Hey, Alex. Hey. I just wanted to say that I feel as though the Red Sox are playing with more motivation since the Devils trade, and I think they're playing much better since the Devils trade. I think there was a problem in the clubhouse, and I think they're playing much looser since he's gone.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Do you think that the Red Sox trade the Devils trade has galvanized the Red Sox?
Yeah. I do. I really do, which is why I'm riding the take that I still think that they're Yankee killers and Yankee killers only, and they're going to have a good June because that's what they consistently do. And I think they're going to fall off the wagon only because specifically of the Jarren Duran comments that I mentioned. Maybe he was a little bit more toxic than we thought. But I stand by what I said is that if you are one of these premier positions in any sport, you get to carry a level of diva with you and get away with it.
If you're producing, absolutely. Here's the thing. It can carry him. It will fade. But this is where Craig Breslow can actually show up and earn his worth. Now, he has to consider the human element of it, which based on a lot of what we've heard the last few weeks, especially in this Jeff Passan piece, he may not do. But if he considers the human element, right, you're riding this high now, ride this to the deadline. Now, add at the deadline, because that can add that kind of bump to it. And now you're creating your own momentum. That's what a good general manager would do. You actually, like, if this is the case and they're truly motivated and they're going to go on a run here because of the Devers trade, you've pressed the right button. Keep pressing. Don't stop. I don't care what the computers tell you. If this is a momentum thing, extend it as much as you can. And we saw this with Chaim Bloom, where they would kind of be right on that borderline at the deadline, do nothing. There was the year like they traded away Christian Vazquez and traded for, what was his name? They traded major leaguers and added major leaguers, and all the players are like, well, this kind of sucks. And he didn't go to Houston, and it was that whole thing. So if that's really the case, I hope they add at the deadline, because maybe they can capitalize on this momentum here.
How do you think this whole situation makes Chaim look?
So I remember saying this when everybody was all hot and bothered about, fire Chaim Bloom, and I kind of feel the same way about Breslow. There's an organizational philosophy that is preached above those guys, and those guys are just doing ownership spinning. So I don't know that it makes Bloom look better or worse. Probably better, I guess, because I think it reinforces the idea that Was Chaim Bloom truly doing what he thought was best for the baseball team, or was he following an ownership directive?
I think we now know that it is an ownership directive, and there's not really a question about it.
So I always felt that way, so maybe that's why I kind of have this different take. But yeah, if there was any doubt about it, it's the GM is here to do the ownership's bidding.
You know what surprises me? This city, in my opinion, after being a transplant here and living here for 7 years, this city will protest about anything. You give them a reason to protest something, and they're in, no questions asked, signs made, in their comfy shoes with their sunscreen on. I'm surprised that this city has not been more vocal, protested more. Like, I get that Red Sox fans are passionate about it, and there's still going to be fans from out of town who are going to come and fill the seats at Fenway Park every single night in the summer, no matter what. But it's getting to a point where I think fans need to do more and say more. Like, I think about just personally, from personal experience, when there was the clown out in Jacksonville with Trent Baalke, when every single Jaguars fan on Twitter changed their profile picture to clowns. Everybody showed up with bags on their heads, clown masks on. Anyone you asked in the crowd during the game to say something who was up on the Jumbotron was making fun of Trent as their answer and whatever. People stopped going to games, sold their tickets, which not that many people were going to the games in general because it's Jacksonville at, whatever year that was, 2018, something like that. I think that there needs to be more of a grassroots movement from actual fans themselves.
Well, I thought maybe the Dallas fans set a new precedent when they went and literally protested.
Agree. That's what I'm
Luka
saying.
Trade.
Especially because this town is the first one in the country when anything happens to get out there with their pitchforks and signs.
And I was wondering if we'd see that with that. It is hard, though, like you said, because having gone to Fenway growing up, going now, it is different. And I think part of the reason it's so different in terms of the makeup of the crowd and the energy and the environment, I think part of the reason it is so different is because of the last 5 years and the way the team has been run. But because it is not just a tourist attraction, but the transplants that essentially Fenway's in some ways the most popular bar in Boston.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And there's the baseball game's going on like it would be on the TV if you go to any other bar. And so it makes it hard when you have, I was there earlier this year for the Mets series, when you have a couple thousand New Yorkers make the trip up and the ballpark still looks full and it still looks loud, it is hard to get that message across. And I was explaining this to somebody else who's a transplant. Like, it still looks like fans are going. Why aren't fans stopping going? Blah, blah, blah. Why isn't Henry feeling this more? Well, because the ballpark kind of allows them to draw from other avenues that a traditional team wouldn't be able to draw from.
I moved here in 2018, and I can tell you that Fenway even feels different from when I first moved here.
The pre-pandemic, post-pandemic Fenway experience is, and that it has nothing to do with the pandemic. I'm just using that as a,
Oh my God, everything in my life is pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Right, exactly.
Everything. It's like a market for, that is like my marker of how things were and how they are.
But I'm not saying they have these checkpoints in Mass, but no, it's not that. I'm just saying as a checkpoint, right? Pre-COVID, post-COVID, Fenway, it's very different. It's so much more museum-y now. It's so much more museum-y. We are going to get to Game 7. I do want to talk about Game 7. We have to hit a break. We'll do that first, and then we'll come back. Alex Barth and Kendra Middleton on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
because they screwed me over with my lease and kept a bunch of my stuff. And one of the things that they wound up taking was a vintage Jimmy Buffett t-shirt that I had thrifted. And I almost threw hands with my landlord.
Wait, so you're a big Jimmy Buffett fan, but you don't know Zach Brown Band?
No.
That's like this. Zach Brown's whole thing is like he idolizes Jimmy Buffett. That's like a big. They're very similar approach.
Well, embrace debate. What kind of music is Jimmy Buffett?
Yacht rock.
Is that a genre?
Yeah. If you like Jimmy Buffett, I think the one
I've seen Jimmy Buffett a few times.
Kyle, did you play Knee Deep earlier or Toes? You played Knee Deep? I think Jimmy Buffett's like technically in that song. You should give Zach.
He definitely is in that song. I've heard it a few times, but I just couldn't tell you who it is. And I know it's all I could tell you was that I know it's the guy who sings the chicken song.
You should give Zach Brown another chance. If you like Jimmy Buffett, you should
I
give
just
Zach
hate
Brown
country music.
Who sings that last one, though?
I don't know.
Pina Colada song.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
It's a guy named Rupert Holmes, but most people think it's Buffett.
One hit wonder for sure.
It is. But a lot of people think that's Buffett. There's a whole Always Sunny episode about that. Game 7, NBA Finals, just under 34 hours away, as the NBA Twitter account has reminded me, and apparently will continue to remind us, counting this down. A neutral Game 7 for us. So I'm excited. Your team being in Game 7, tough. Neutral Game 7, hell yeah.
This is the least excited I've ever been for a Game 7, but I am going to ask you my question of my show this morning and the question that I asked Kyle when I saw his face for the first time this morning. More embarrassing, OKC going to a Game 7 against an injured Tyrese Halliburton and this Pacers team, or the Celtics losing to this Knicks team? What's worse? What's more embarrassing? Because I cannot decide. They're both real bad.
Yeah, they're good comps. The Celtics one is worse. Definitely. More embarrassing might be this Thunder team. Just because it's the finals, it's a bigger stage and all of that.
I don't know. The Celtics team was built for this. That's true. Pretty terrible.
So I had my take at the time was that just objectively, the Celtics losing that series to the Knicks as a fan was a worse series loss than that Bruins team that set the points record losing in the first round to Florida. I thought that was worse because...
Yeah, that is, I mean...
Which series had a greater talent gap? Celtics, Knicks, or Bruins, Panthers?
Celtics, Knicks.
Celtics, Knicks. And the Celtics didn't set the wins record, but that's still a team that was supposed to have this historical significance and all of that going back to back. And much like the Bruins losing to the Panthers, where it felt like the end of an era because you knew that they weren't going to be able to keep that team together, the Tatum injury is what kind of hammered home that take for me.
Now, see, here's my thing. The Bruins look in retrospect. I'm not going to say 2020, even though you can drop that if you want to. We still have that cut. The Panthers situation looks a lot better now, looking back at it. Whereas I don't really care about the Tatum injury. You still should have beaten that team. You're going to look back at this in 10 years and be like, damn, that was a flop.
No, they didn't lose because of the injury. I'm just saying, like, the lasting impact losing that series, including the Tatum injury as part of that, the lasting impact that series will have on the franchise.
Yeah, but like you can go back and say if you didn't F around and find out that Tatum, and you close that out, took it way more seriously as a series, that injury could possibly never have even happened.
That's what I'm saying. That's what makes it so tough, is if they're not screwing around. Like, just as a fan to watch that series was a torture chamber.
But you could say the same about the Bruins, though, because they were screwing around.
Yeah, they're both bad. Don't get me wrong, they're both bad.
I just think it's easier. Look, it's easier. You're right that it's going to be easier to look back at this Panthers team and be like, damn, that was a wagon. Right. Instead of...
This Knicks team is not about to have the run that Panthers team
and now the Celtics are cooked for 2 years.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, do you look at that Pacers series from last year, seeing how close this team is? It's like, okay, it was 4 games, but it was a close 4 games. We might have underestimated the historical context of that series and what that sweep really meant.
No, because to be honest, I don't think that this Pacers team, and I've said this all along, I don't think that this Pacers team is that far off from the Pacers team last year. I think that it's a little bit of experience. You got further in the postseason last year. You learned a lot. The coaching is obviously a huge angle for them. And I'm going to continue to beat this take to death, literally to death. This team is just the team that won't go away no matter what. That's just who they are. It doesn't matter what situation they're in. They're going to fight until their very last breath. We've been comparing them on my show to, once again, the white crusty dog at your childhood friend's house that would just ankle bite you and you couldn't kick them across the room because that's just frowned upon. And that's exactly what this team is. I think that it's the experience of them having what they went through last year and the coaching. The team is not that different. It's basically the same team they had last year, and they ran it back.
Even with Halliburton, well, he played, but he was banged up in that Celtics series. But isn't there
He's banged up right now.
Isn't there something to be said for that in a league that, and I heard you talking about this a little bit during the betting show, in a league that lacks toughness, how many teams in the NBA would have fallen down, lose that game 5 the way they did, and mentally go to Cancun?
So many.
Right. So isn't there, and whether that's
ankle
coaching,
biter, chihuahua, white crusty dog,
whether that's coaching, whether that's internal leadership. I mean, they do have Siakam's been there. Siakam's done it.
He's been awesome.
So that helps. McConnell's a veteran. He knows what it takes to win. There is a toughness. It kind of shows you just the Celtics are not tough in the playoffs. They weren't. Not against the Knicks, certainly.
I don't think they're that tough of a team in general.
They're not, but I think they're the average NBA toughness, which isn't saying much, but it kind of shows you if you'll be the one or two teams that are tough in that league, it might carry you because so many teams don't want to throw the counterpunch.
I hate to say it, but I think that the Marcus Smart trade was awesome. I think that it was the right thing to do. It clearly propelled them in the right direction, worked out well for them. But you lost that bit of toughness and grit when you got rid of that guy. That was the one thing that he offered this team.
Yeah, I think Holiday was supposed to kind of bring that back.
No, because if you watched him in Milwaukee, it's not like he was, a bruiser. Your toughest guy on your team is Jaylen Brown, and it's not even a question.
So I won't even say was. I am a Marcus Smart fan. I like my basketball players to play like it's football.
Like it's 1980.
I love watching Marcus Smart. I understand why they made the trade. I understand why they had to do that. But, you're right. There was an edge that they didn't win last year because they had an edge, because they had toughness. They won because they had a super team roster.
And they got lucky.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Every championship comes with some amount of luck. I get that that's an angle, and that's something that we have to talk about when talking about it, but every championship comes with a certain amount of luck.
But it's also, there's a toughness to it, too. If you want to repeat, I'm sorry, all these people who are already writing the Thunder in to win next year,
crazy.
Have you people not watched the way this league has gone the last 5 years?
They haven't watched this postseason at all either.
If this Celtics team couldn't repeat, I'm sorry, the Celtics are a better team than the Thunder. The Celtics are better positioned to repeat than the Thunder, and they didn't get out of the second round. This Thunder team is not some special generational team. They're good. They're a very good basketball team, and they'll be around, and they'll be plucky, and maybe they'll win again at some point. They're not the next iteration of the Prime Warriors. They're certainly not closer than the Celtics were to that.
The West is about to dominate for the next decade.
Do you think Durant stays West?
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't even really care where Giannis goes. I don't think it matters.
He's probably going West, though.
I don't know. He said that he wants to stay in the East, just because I assume because the competition's easier.
Maybe.
Because if you build any sort of quote-unquote super team, which I don't really believe in the super team narrative anymore based off of how this season has gone.
Sure.
I don't really believe in that big three mentality anymore. But even if you assemble something like that with Giannis on it, I don't even think then.
It's going to be easy to compete. That's why you see the Magic trying to load up. Because if the Celtics are...
The Magic have a good upside the next couple of years. If Banchero can stay healthy, the Magic are going to cook.
Yeah. No, and I think especially you're going to see teams when this offseason gets started for these next 2 years. Like you said, the Celtics are cooked. Here's a window, right? So I think you might see some East teams borrow from the future, but teams are going to have to get desperate. And it's not going to be that full talent shift. And you're right. It's all out West. And Oklahoma City's going to have to keep going through Jokic.
Wemby is the future, man.
Keep going through Wembanyama. And they have Dylan Harper, right? They're going to get with that second pick, and he can play.
LA is obviously going to make some moves, too. They're not going to have LeBron for... They've made it clear they're not doing that.
They're going to have the Dodgers budget now.
Yeah.
After that sale. So they're gonna be back in the mix. And Ballmer, that's going to get him going, and they're going to be in the mix. No, the NBA is all out West right now, which the league hates. Which Adam Silver hates, which kind of makes me for it. Because I just think Silver's done such a bad job.
I think that he's awesome.
I think he gets in his own way too much. They want it to be European soccer so bad, and it's just let that be that. Let the NBA be what the NBA is. There's too much gimmicky stuff. He's introduced too many gimmicky things, and it bugs me. Like, you don't need to be.
I just think he stands on business, which is why I think I appreciate him. And I know that it is very much like blinders on for me. But in comparison to the other leagues, Adam Silver doesn't tolerate the shenanigans of if you get a case, you're still around of any sort. It's like if you F around too hard, you're out of here. No questions asked. Work on yourself.
So as a, whatever you want to call that, enforcer, like he does a good job.
He stands on business.
As a steward of the game, I don't love the game of basketball being in his hands. I think he does a good job of the day-to-day business.
But I think that is not so much his fault as much as it is the culture that we talk about all the time of the future player. It doesn't really matter what sport it is. Like, I think it was McCarthy and I were on when we were talking about if you want to sit here and you want to be one of these old heads, which you have every right to do and say whatever you want to do. But if you're going to just sit here and complain about how soft the next generation of athlete is and how they want to be coddled and they're such babies and whatever, it's not just sport specific. It's generation specific. And I think that is what Adam Silver leans into about the next generation in a way. And that's just the reality of it. All the sports are getting softer because the next generations are softer. And if you don't like that as a boomer or, whatever, honestly, that's your fault. That's on you. Because who raised these kids? You. There's nobody pointing the finger harder than you pointing it back at yourself.
But, like, what does that have to do with, again, the finals broadcast being a mess and the in-season tournament, which has been fun, but I hate it. They executed it better than I thought. I still think it's a weird idea.
The in-season tournament I'll give you, but I think it's just the fact that the NBA isn't as entertaining as it used to be because we don't have Shaq and Charles Barkley and, the Tim Duncans that we used to have in the same form of physical basketball. That's just gone and dead. And that's why people don't think the NBA is as entertaining as it used to be, is because it's not as physical as it used to be. It's just different. It's finesse. It's the 3-point shot. It's all of these things that we complain about with the Celtics.
Well, I think they're not everything. I think there's things Silver can do, like you see with commissioners all the time, right? Rule emphasize. I don't know what the plural of emphasis is. Emphases, yes. Things like that. That's what commissioners have the power to do. So I'm with you. He's done a good job in terms of like the legal stuff, and he's not Roger Goodell with that. Certainly, he's better in that regard. I just don't love him as a steward of the game.
So do you think that the fix is if they crack down harder on the flopping? Do you think that fixes things?
Yeah, like I think that would be part of it. And I think they're kind of getting bullied into it a little bit because
as they should be.
It hasn't been a good look for the league that their MVP is making a run to a title, and the kind of general consensus is we hate watching this guy play. Like if you go on Twitter after the game, you just see a bunch of people bemoaning the way SGA plays and being a foul baiter and a flopper. And he's rewarded for doing that. And he's not the only one. But it's not a good look.
But that's why the NBA struggles.
Right. So is there something Silver could do? And I don't necessarily
And I think that circles back to the generational softness thing. That is where the game of basketball is at, and that's why people don't want to watch it.
So if you stop, and I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I'm not being paid millions of dollars to figure this out. If you can come up with some way to disincentivize it.
I get that the viewership is down, but like I talked about it in comparison. The NBA is the closest thing we see in flopping in comparison to soccer. Soccer's the biggest sport globally. People don't really seem to care that much.
But soccer's always been like that. The basketball, they haven't. I'll add this one thing to your point. I don't care about the ratings that much. I don't. I think people overrate them. Is it good basketball? Yes or no? At the end of the day, water finds its level. Yeah, Oklahoma City and Indiana is tough for ratings. I
Least
get that.
Exciting Game 7 and maybe ever for me.
But it's been a good basketball series. And I think if it's that, eventually people will find their way back to it. We talked about the Celtics maybe being down and out for a year or two. Is that time to make big change? We got some reporting on that this week. We'll get back to it next. It's Alex Barth and Kendra Middleton on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports.
a pretty insurmountable package to get those guys out of Boston.
I wouldn't do it. I want to see. This is the opportunity with unfortunate incident to Tatum. This is the opportunity for us to see, Boston to see, everybody to see if Jaylen Brown can lead your team. We saw what he was able to do in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, 2 years ago. We saw what he was able to do against Luka, setting the tone defensively, offensively as well. But now there's always this back and forth about 1A, 1B. Now we have the opportunity, and I do believe Jaylen Brown can do that. But give him the chance. Don't trade him now. This is his chance to show that he can lead the Boston Celtics.
How the Celtics are operating in this space right now is that they're looking at next year as a retooling year.
What?
That's what Connor thinks too.
Me and Brad Stevens, man. We just can't ball. We just know ball.
Great coach.
But that doesn't mean
just because the organization looks at it like that doesn't mean the players and the guys in that locker room look at it like that.
That doesn't mean you don't want to stay competitive. That doesn't mean you don't want to continue. But listen, realistically, without Jason Tatum, it's going to be tough.
And the drafts next week, and the report from Shams late this week was that there are crazy offers to the Celtics for a Jaylen Brown trade. For instance, this was something SI put out there as a hypothetical. Jaylen Brown to the Spurs for Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, the second overall pick this year and a top 10 protected pick next year. That's quite the haul. I still don't know that I'm trading Jaylen Brown. I don't want a full rebuild. A retool makes all the sense in the world. They need to get younger, right? It's been Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown around this group of veterans for most of their careers, whether it was Kyrie, whether it was Kemba. Now it's Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. I wish the Kemba era worked. I was a big fan of his.
Me too. I loved him.
But
him and Taco Fall were so fun.
You know, it reminds me of when Brady tore his ACL and they went from those older teams around Brady to Brady being the veteran in the room, leading the younger group with some of the drafts they had there. I think this is just kind of the logical point to get younger around those guys, whether that means draft picks, whether that means acquiring young players. And they do have to, get under that tax, and moving guys like Holiday and Porzingis and even Hauser makes sense. Jaylen Brown should be a part of what you're coming out with on the other side. I'm not saying I wouldn't pick up the phone. I would really, really, really have to be blown away to trade Jaylen Brown. And I don't know that the second overall pick does it for me. It's the Family Guy mystery box or the boat, right? Second overall pick could be anything. It could even be Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, that haul's not good enough for me. It's got to be more than that, which I don't think any team is going to do. And it goes back to the conversation of, do I think that this is going to happen? No. But are you going to put together something like a package with Giannis included in it for someone like JB? That's the only caliber of something that I would even really consider.
I don't think I would do that.
And I'm not even sure that I would do that. But people
remember Giannis play? Can you imagine Giannis playing Missoula ball?
No, but his three-point shot has gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. I will say it's still not great, but it was really, really not great before they won that championship. My other thing is that people are going to call me crazy, but if I were in charge and people are going to seriously think that this is insane to say, and I'm picking
excited for this,
and I'm picking between the Jays, I'm not picking Jason.
Oh no, I'm picking Tatum.
No,
it's just a better player.
I understand why people feel that way. But I just think that people here are way too sold on the Tatum thing.
But you can't trade him right now.
No, you can't. Oh my God, no.
You'd be selling at the absolute lowest. So
you can't. I'm just saying, if I'm forced to pick between the two of them, it's not going to be the two of them. So I'm not getting rid of JB, is what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. I just don't think it makes sense, even with these crazy offers. Let's say this is the one I might listen to. Let's say Dallas calls you with the first pick. And you can add Cooper Flag.
That's the only. But that's the thing. And Big Jim has made points about this, and you guys are going to hear from him a little bit later. I think he's in today. Yep. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He's been very adamant about I want what I know that I have and not the potential of what I could have. The argument, obviously, for anyone who follows sports in any capacity is that Cooper Flag is going to be so cheap. It gives him a year without the pressure of Tatum to learn, build, get a little bit of an NBA season under his belt before there's any sort of, win now championship, a lot of pressure situation. I don't even know if he would thrive in the Missoula ball situation either, though. That's the thing.
I just go back to the mystery box and the boat. The mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. You know how much we've wanted one of those.
But a boat loses value the second you put it in the water.
Do you remember what was in the mystery box?
No.
Tickets to a comedy show. So I'd rather have the boat. The fact there's crazy offers, though, kind of tells me that this offseason is going to go a little nuts. I think teams see how wide open this all is. The East truly is wide open with Tatum out. The East truly is wide open. And the West being so competitive, in a sense, makes it wide open because anybody can knock off anybody. And if you just get hot at the right time, is there one team in the West, and this is going into an offseason, we'll see all the movement, but like going into this playoffs, right? Obviously the Thunder were a wagon all year. Would you definitively take the Thunder over anybody in the West, though?
No, especially after watching them the last couple of weeks. No, absolutely not.
Right.
I've been saying that the whole thing for me is that I do believe in the magic number of 27. I've gotten a lot into those analytics on my show. And
was this that guys win their first title age 27?
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think what I went into was that the starting five for the Pacers are 27 on the dot.
Like average age?
Yeah. Their team. I'm not sure if it was their starting five or their team age average was exactly 27. And either way you put it for OKC, they're just under that mark. But that's the thing is that I do believe that age is like your golden ticket. But how much longer do you have that?
Yeah, it's. I hate it. This is just a general take. Everybody did this when Rodgers signed with the Jets a couple years ago. It was, oh well, now the Jets have Rodgers. In Miami with Tua, they're on the upswing, and they just hired Mike McDaniel and the Bills, and it's like the Patriots will be in last place for 5 years, right? The AFC East is going to be untouchable, and then you have the Chiefs, and so like the AFC, like a year later, the Jets now blow again, which I'm sorry, you really couldn't see that one coming. The Dolphins thing proved out to be non-sustainable. Shocker. Yeah, the Bills are still good, but they are kind of going through their own little bit of a retool. The Chiefs are going through a retool. I think when everybody was saying this, nobody was counting on the Texans with C.J. Stroud. I know we had a rough year last year.
I'm the only person. I won so many futures.
You were big on C.J. Stroud. I remember that.
I had C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, and I had them to make the playoffs that year. Most money I've ever made gambling in my life was on the Texans that year.
We need to not do in sports, if you're going to say this is the way it's going to be for 5 years, you're probably wrong.
I don't know. I just don't see how we escape the West being so dominant just because of the way everybody's contracts are structured, especially if Dallas keeps the Cooper Flag pick. Like
the West will be a wagon. Will it be the same team at the end every time?
No, absolutely not. That's the thing is that like you can't bet on OKC to be this team of the future out West because back to my 27 point, I think that they're still maybe a little too young. And on top of that, we've seen them just absolutely crumble out of any sort of pressure this season to an inferior opponent. Do we think that they're the type of team to be able to bounce back from that? Because as much as I love Shea, he's one of the, like you just alluded to, the fact that everyone online is constantly talking about how soft of a player he is and how he capitalizes off of flopping and fouls and whatever. I love to watch him play. I love his game. I think he's a fun player to watch. But if this team loses this final, I don't see this team being the type of team to bounce back. And they did not get enough out of Chet Holmgren in this series. Not even close. He had one good game. I'd argue 1.5.
All right, we kind of got to it there. You want to do a little football talk?
Yeah.
It's Barth and Kendra. We got to do a little football talk. We'll do that next here on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
trade there will get done. The question is, when does it get done? Does it get done next week, the week after, prior to the start of training camp? I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but Jalen Ramsey will get traded. It'll be, I would expect, before the start of training camp. We'll see how it shakes out, where he goes. I think he would like to go to the West Coast, to Los Angeles, Rams, Chargers, somewhere like that, and we'll see.
Popular, but it's like
it would be. I would say considered. Yeah,
I remember playing that in college radio station, like before it was big. That was Adam Schefter on Jalen Ramsey. That whole saga is still ongoing. I wish he wasn't in the division because I think he actually would make sense for the Patriots. Like, I wasn't really in on the Patriots trading for or signing Jair Alexander. I never got that one. That's the one position you can look at where you kind of say the Patriots are set with Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis, and none of those guys play on the inside. Gonzalez doesn't. Davis doesn't. Alexander doesn't. So you're going to bench somebody. You're probably going to tick somebody off. You're going to create a bad situation. I was good on that one. Ramsey can play in the slot. Ramsey can play safety. He can play in the box. Like, you can do a lot with him. Miami's never going to trade him to the Patriots.
No.
So I'm rooting for all this trade stuff to fall apart and him get cut. And then maybe there's an opportunity there. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's what I'm rooting for. But this one makes more sense to me. And then obviously you have the pass rushers, TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson. I don't think either of those guys are moving ultimately. But this is something I think if you're a Patriots fan, you watch a little bit. You watch a little bit. I don't think they're going to trade for him. I don't think that's realistic. But if he gets cut, I would certainly hope the Patriots make that call.
He clearly wants to go West Coast. I think he's going to the Chargers.
That'd be an interesting fit.
I think it's got to be the Chargers.
Him and Derwin James together would be fun. He's not going back to the Rams. Didn't he have like a really bad exit there? If I remember correctly.
He had a really bad exit with Jacksonville.
Yes.
I would love to see him back in Jacksonville. But I think it's got to be... honestly... For me, it's the Chargers. I don't think the Ravens could make it work, but that would help their team a lot. I already think that they're a Super Bowl team juggernaut. I think it's their year, the Bills' year, in my opinion. I'm going to give out futures on them both at some point on my show coming up here in the near future. But I think it's got to be someone like the Chargers, maybe the Buccaneers. The Bucs division is so weak that they could genuinely, if they add a piece like him, probably dominate their division without a question of a doubt in my mind.
Haven't we said that about the AFC South for like 5 years now? NFC South?
NFC South, yeah. But here's the thing. I gave out a future on the Panthers a couple weeks ago to come second in their division, plus 220, something like that. I think the Panthers are going to make the biggest jump in that division this year, maybe even the NFL.
Second, I don't know. I'm a believer in the Falcons. I'm a big Michael Penix guy, so that's part of it.
I just think that their whole ownership situation, everyone around and in that organization is just too stupid.
But they still win 8 or 9 games every year. So are the Panthers winning 10 games? Because the Bucs are going to win 10.
I think the Bucs win 9. I don't think that's the thing too. The Falcons are shopping people.
Are they? Who else? I know they're shopping Kyle Pitts. But they've basically been shopping Kyle Pitts since they drafted him.
I know
that's just background noise to me at this point.
Really?
The potential trading of Kyle Pitts, that's been every offseason. I'll believe it when I see it. It's like the Miles Turner trade rumors. In a league where every player plays for like 5 teams in 4 years, Miles Turner is somehow cemented to the floor in Indianapolis.
But he's good enough for me to consider that if they do trade him, they're taking a step back.
Pitts?
Yeah.
Would you want to see the Patriots trade for him?
I don't give a crap.
Would you want to see your team trade for him?
Yes.
I wouldn't get... So there was that report from Jordan Schultz last month that they want a day 2 pick. I'm not giving up a top 100 pick for Kyle Pitts.
No, absolutely not. But after they got... Here's the thing. The reason that I personally would like to see him in Jacksonville or on... I'll give you the reason for Jacksonville in particular, but I would like to see him on my team. The Jags got rid of Evan Engram.
Yeah, it's similar skill set.
Huge security blanket for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor loves a tight end, and that's the thing that I think has been consistent with a lot of these younger quarterbacks. And as the game changes, young quarterbacks love a reliable tight end. One, it's a good guy for them to go up there, go over the defense, catch a ball for you if you're in a 50-50 situation. On top of that, they provide you some relief with, any sort of blocking or anything like that. And as this game grows and changes, we see way more 2 tight end sets and game planning than we've seen in a long time. The tight end position has changed more than any position in the last 10 years.
You're going to see it here quite a bit.
That's what I'm saying. Year. Yeah, like the tight end position is its value is peaking in the current NFL. And if you can get a guy like that on a decent deal, I'm not giving up a top 100 pick for a guy like that, but if you can maybe get a third round or something like that, work out a deal that makes sense for you, end of the third round, whatever, don't care, maybe I would consider it if it was good enough or it was going to make that big of a difference on my team. But that's such a good position for teams with young quarterbacks to find a way to make work.
But this is why I'll believe it when I see it. Because nobody's going to give up a top 100 pick for Kyle Pitts because he's not proven enough. But the Falcons aren't going to quit on him for less than that because he has so much natural ability.
But
even if they
never
can't
had a
tap
quarterback.
Into it. He's also never had a quarterback. But he's also, like, the offensive coordinator is more the problem than the quarterback for me with him. Do you know how many passes they threw Kyle Pitts in the red zone last year?
Not very many.
13.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think that was up from the year before, if I remember correctly.
That kind of just doubles down on the fact or the opinion for me that it's not a Kyle Pitts problem. It's a Falcons problem.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is, during the draft, you've probably heard me talk about this. Kyle Pitts is the poster child for nature versus nurture when it comes to the draft. Like, when people ask me, is this player going to be good? Just like outright, I kind of hate that question because, well, where's he going?
Situation.
Right. Is he going to an organization that can develop him?
Jackson Dart.
Playing around. Yeah. So Kyle Pitts is, I don't think a lot of people are necessarily wrong about Kyle Pitts in the sense that I don't think people misjudged his ability. I think the Falcons just might be kind of dumb.
That's what I'm saying. That organization is just too stupid. Too stupid.
Because they made other good decisions that time. The offensive coordinators they've had with Kyle Pitts are kind of dumb.
Well, that's I don't know. I think that they're just stupid in general because did I like the Michael Penix pick because of how everything was moving last year? Yeah, but when you just sign Kirk Cousins to a deal like that and you go out there and invest that high of a draft pick in a quarterback, what the hell are you idiots doing? Like, I love the pick because of how that draft shook out with quarterbacks, and I think that Michael Penix is going to be good, and obviously with a quarterback, you invest the pick in that decision. But what were you doing going out there and giving Kirk Cousins that money then?
So I liked it because if Kirk Cousins had been in year 2 of a 5-year deal instead of year 1 of a 4-year deal, people would have looked at that very differently. I'm never going to fault the team for addressing the quarterback position because it's the quarterback position, and it's hard to get good ones. And look, if Kirk Cousins had bottomed out and then they needed a quarterback this year in a down year, if there's a year with good quarterbacks, you want to take advantage. I don't fault them for that.
I don't disagree. It's more so just I thought that was really stupid in the fact that you're going to give him that amount of money and then turn around and be like, well, no, this guy is going to be the future of our franchise situation. I thought that Michael Penix was worth that pick. I did not think Kirk Cousins was worth that money.
Yeah, I more second-guess the Kirk Cousins contract.
The Kirk Cousins thing was stupid. I get you going out there and getting a vet, but don't go out there and get a vet for that price that you're going to bench halfway through the first season of having this guy. And I get that there was injury and you can point the fingers at all of that, but I think even pre-injury you knew that this was how this was going to shake out, which is why you made the pick in the first place.
By the way, 13 red zone targets to Kyle Pitts last year. The year before that, you want to guess?
9.
Less.
Wow. 7.
6.
Whoa.
7.
That was the Bijan year, right? That was his first year?
I think, yes.
And they just, once again, stupid. How they handle Bijan Robinson, I don't know how I didn't start yelling about this 5 minutes ago. Stupid. Stupid, 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 stupid. You guys could manage him so much better. You could make your team so much better if you managed his talent and his game even a fraction better.
In 2022, I have to double check this. Okay, no, he got hurt. I was going to say, he didn't have a red zone target. He had 7 red zone targets in 2022, none after Halloween. Now he got hurt, which is, I buried the lead there. That's why I had to double check that. But they just, it doesn't look right. Dave in Boston has a question for Kendra. Dave.
Hey, Kendra. I just wanted to see if you think that, is there a scenario where Jacksonville moves on from Trevor Lawrence if he doesn't get it done this year, or are they kind of just stuck with him? Also, do you think he's a bust as of right now, like today, if you had to say yes or no either way? And third point, do you remember when Jacksonville had kind of like that all-star team on defense, like when they should have went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots?
Yeah.
Yeah, that team was loaded. Baltimore, they're kind of that version now on defense, the way they're building it. I think they're going to win it all this year. Like, I would future Baltimore, like $100, like, that's easy money. I think they're going to win it all.
Thanks for the call, Dave. You were, first of all, because you work in these sorts of things. Trevor Lawrence, new helmet, that stupid-looking Vices one. Do you have an aura concern with Trevor Lawrence right now?
I think that is my biggest concern with Trevor always. I don't think that it's Trevor's lack of talent. I think Trevor is his own worst enemy.
Okay.
I really do. Do I think that I'm going to try and get to all of his questions. I'm trying to remember all of them. Obviously.
All right. Number one was, is there a situation where they move on from Trevor Lawrence after this year if he has a bad year?
No.
I'm with you on that.
Not a crap shot in hell. No. That is Trevor Lawrence's team as long as Trevor Lawrence wants it to be his team. And I do like the Liam Cohen thing. I'm happy about Gladstone. I think that it gives them a little bit of upside, especially because Trevor seems so bought in on having young guys surrounding him and young guys to grow with. I could see Trevor Lawrence being the type of person where it's not even going to be a Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith situation where he needs to move on and find a new team. I think that he needed to find a new just situation for himself within this organization, and I think that by the turnover, that's providing that for him.
It's a change of scenery without a real change of scenery. Yeah,
exactly.
They changed the scenery around him.
Yeah.
Can I answer the second part of his question? Is
Sure.
Trevor Lawrence a bust? No. And we overuse that term. Just like we overuse GOAT, we overuse bust. Mac Jones is a bust.
Yeah.
A bust doesn't get a second contract. Has Trevor Lawrence fully lived up to being the first overall pick? Has he fully lived up to the hype he had going into that draft as a generational quarterback prospect? No, of course he hasn't. There is a difference between not living up to the pick and being a bust. And when we overuse that term, it lessens it for the Jamarcus Russells of the world. Okay? Trevor Lawrence, he has not entirely lived up to the billing, but he's not a bust. Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, these guys are busts. Even Justin Fields, I would say, like,
he's got a chance too. I really think that he's
light.
No, but I think that he has that Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield opportunity this year.
So that's what I'm saying. He's not on the same level as like Mac and Jared Wilson and Trey Lance. Those guys may never start another game in the NFL.
My whole thing is that I think that teams really screw over the player when they add this generational talent tag to them. And I think that was Trevor's whole issue, right? Was that, like I said, he's his own worst enemy.
If we can blame Dabo Swinney, sign me up.
If he just gets so far in his own head that he can't get out of it. And when you add a generational tag to someone who's never even thrown an NFL pass, I think that's the issue. Like, we're talking about this with Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
And I think that is detrimental to some of these players, especially people don't consider this. When you slap someone like Urban Meyer on this kid their first year in the NFL, I think truly that was the worst thing that ever happened to Trevor Lawrence, was putting that ass clown in there.
The worst thing that happened to a lot of people. It was a really bad hire. It was a really bad decision. We all knew it was coming.
I stopped supporting the team that year.
I love those ones in sports. Zach Wilson was another one. When the Jets, when that came out that they were going to draft Zach Wilson, it was like, really? Like the wide consensus. It was a rare wide consensus when it comes to the football community. It's like, this is a bad decision that you were going to make. And we were all right. Urban Meyer, this is a bad decision. Matt Patricia, it's a bad decision. Those ones are always kind of fun because you can see it coming and you get to enjoy the ride. The Urban Meyer one's up there, though. That's one of the all-time bad ones. Because he hadn't even been coaching in college, right? He came from media to Jacksonville. I'm trying to remember the timeline.
No, he was. He went to Ohio State, had that fake heart attack.
Right, and then he was in the media for like a few years before he went to Jacksonville, right?
No, he had that fake heart attack, and I think was he in the media? I don't think so.
I thought it
was such a quick turnaround.
Whatever it was wrong. 617-779-0985. You said you're going to maybe put a future in on...
Oh, Ravens and Bills.
Bills.
I had a Ravens future last year and... No, I had a Ravens and somebody else future last year. But yeah, I'm definitely going to... The Ravens and the Bills are my two teams this year.
So we just talked about, whatever it was, like a second ago, the Eastern Conference in basketball being bad. Do you feel confident about anybody in the AFC making that kind of pick? Because the Ravens and Bills, and I think especially the Ravens are loaded. The Ravens were loaded last year, and they still choked. And I picked the Ravens last year, and my thought process was the reason Lamar has struggled in the playoffs is he keeps getting beat up because he's running so much. They add Derrick Henry. He's going to be healthier going into the postseason. This is going to be the best Lamar's ever been in the postseason. They should win. They choked. The Bills, they continue to choke year after year after year in the playoffs. They can't get through Kansas City. Kansas City's going through a retool. Then you have the Bengals, who can beat the Bills, but not anybody else. It doesn't feel definitive in the AFC to me. It should be the Ravens. It should. On paper, it's the Ravens. The Ravens definitively are the best team. After last year, I start to worry if there's a DNA thing there. Last year, I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I thought the Derrick Henry addition was awesome. The fact that didn't change anything worries me.
See, I think that you can say that about a lot of things in history, though. Like, every team that has this sort of narrative around them has to get over that hump at some point. There obviously are teams that you can look at that don't, but the Cubs didn't win for, God, however long, and they finally got over that hump, and they haven't been heard of since.
We did this with the Celtics. The Celtics can't win. They can't win. Well, they can't until they can.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that it comes a time where every team has these expectations of, okay, this is our window, this is our time. I feel that way about Lamar and Josh Allen right now. I think if I had...
Who do you feel stronger about?
I was just going to say I think that it is a Josh Allen year. This Ravens team is a juggernaut. Best team in the NFL by far for me. But I just, after watching everything that went down in the playoffs this year, that's going to be my Super Bowl if we get that rematch again.
What was it?
If it's Bills-Ravens in the AFC again.
Yeah.
That's going to be my Super Bowl.
I get what you're saying. I was like, that's not a Super Bowl. I understand. When the hosts aren't listening. Real quick here before we wrap it up. How about college football? You got a college football future for me?
I actually told everyone that listens to my show this morning, July is when we're going to get into college football futures.
Okay.
Once the NHL, NBA, all that stuff is over and we're just in baseball season, we're going to start getting into college football futures. I want to do division by division, maybe props, stuff like that. I gave out some early stuff when the schedule got released just for people to get ahead of. Whatever the UNC total is, I'm taking the under.
That feels like a safe bet.
Yeah.
Any given year.
There's your college football bet. That's whatever the UNC total is right now.
UNC or USC?
UNC.
Oh, I don't know what that number is. I thought you said USC. I'll always take the under on USC.
UNC total, under.
I'll take the under on Southern California. I'll give you one. Not to win the national championship, Arizona State's going back to the playoff.
That's spicy.
I like Sam Leavitt. I like Jordan Tyson. I think Kenny Dillingham's built a good program. The Big 12 is going to be a crapshoot like it is every year. I think Arizona State's going back to playoff. I don't know if they win the title. I don't know if they can compete with like the SEC and Big 10 Blue Bloods for 4 weeks in a row. But that's a good football team.
I'll give you a hot take.
What?
I'm going to be taking a lot of SEC unders.
Because they're all just going to beat up on each other.
The schedule this year, especially for the SEC West.
Woof. Well, they know it because they're pushing for the 4 AQs in the playoff. Woof. So they know they're going to need it. That's a good pick. All right, that'll do it for us. Kendra will be back next week.
Yeah.
Yes, and I will be back on July 1st, I think is my next show. So 4th of July shifts incoming. You can check out more of my work on 985thesportshub.com. If you missed Kendra this morning, the Over Under 98.5 podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We got Jim Murray. Is Gasper in today? We got Murray and Gasper, fully loaded.
Wow.
Gasper Murray coming your way next here on the Sports Hub. Enjoy a sunny Saturday, everybody.
Home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Put a bang in your 4th of July from fireworks over the border. The